Welcome back. So one of the things that I want to talk to you about isomorphism is how organizations tend to look the same over time. Now this is an addition that you won't find in the classic DiMaggio and Powell 1983 article, but instead I'm borrowing from Arthur D. Little's product and industry life cycle model. Now this model is divided into 4 phases, and let me show you what it looks like. Okay, so what we have is on, can you guys see that? Let me add this here. I've seen this done in a variety of ways, but what you have on your y-axis is industry size or demand, okay, how many products or units sold, for example. And then the x-axis you have time. And you've got a minus and a plus, so the top would be greater industry size or greater demand, less industry size, less demand, beginning of time, the launch of a general industry or product, and as it's been around for a little while. So longer time, the further right you go. Okay, so the curve generally looks like this. Okay. And it's normally divided into 4 phases. This first area here is what we call introduction. I've also seen this called emergence. Then you've got growth. Maturity, or as my mom would say, maturity, and then decline. So in the introduction phase, what you see is that the product has been recently launched, or the industry is relatively new, and there's not that much demand just yet. Okay? And when you're in the introduction phase, what you notice is there is a lot of variation within products and product types. So people are kind of struggling with what an actual product looks like, and is there actually a need for the product? We're actually figuring out if this is a viable product or a viable industry. And again, this model can apply to either individual products or an industry as a whole. Now there's an exception that I'll get to towards the end of this video. Okay. Growth means that, okay, this product or this industry is here to stay, but how should it look? What should the number of competitors look like? When you get in the introduction phase, you have, if I were to compare it to the growth phase, the introduction is you have a lot of avant-garde buyers. Avant-garde buyers are those cool people that have like really neat technology that they've overpaid for because they're still trying to figure out what technology should look like, right? You have very short runs of production, meaning that these avant-garde products don't really stick around for a long time. They produce them maybe 6 months and you don't see you again, right? And there is a lot of differences in designs between different products, between different companies in that industry. Whereas when you look at growth, everyone agrees, here we're still trying to figure out, is there actually a place for this product or this industry? Here we say, all right, you know what? It's definitely here. There is a place for this product. There is a need for this given industry. Now, how do we decide what that industry should look like? Should it be here? What should it look like? And at this point, you're going to start seeing a lot of competitors getting out of the industry, a lot of less efficient or less legitimate, actually less efficient at this point, products and services exiting the market. Demand is growing because it's seen as a little bit more of a legitimate product or industry than it is in the growth, in the introduction phase. And then you move to the maturity, phase. And in the maturity phase, you see that, all right, this product is definitely here to stay. We have a kind of a finite number of competitors here. And at this point, we know what the product should look like. We know that the industry is going to be here. And we know what the industry and products should look like. Now we need to figure out, how do we make those products better? What processes are the best practices for sustaining these products, sustaining this industry? That's what happens in the growth phase. Now, some industries will also deal with a decline, and that's when customer tastes have varied to the point, or the technology has become obsolete, and at this point you see that demand is declining, and you have a lot of firms getting out of this particular industry, and they may try to hold on to what profits they can, but for the most part they're kind of wrapping this up. So how does this tie into isomorphism? When you look at the introduction and the growth phases, there is a lot of variation between products and industries, but as time progresses and an industry grows, in the maturity phase you start to see all products and services look more and more alike, because there is a proliferation of best practices. Okay? And same in the decline. Actually, they're kind of like lemmings when you go into the decline phase. In the decline phase, because of the fact that so many firms are exiting, kind of like lemmings jumping off, the ones that remain will probably resemble each other much more than some of the ones that have exited, because of the fact that these are the ones that survived due to best practices. Now, the next part that I want you to think about. You can look at this, not all industries ever enter the decline phase. That's not necessarily true. In fact, you can actually have renewal of individual products. And let me explain what I mean. Okay, let's have a look here. Let's say that we're talking about certain kinds of products where there's a lot of new technology. Let me use the example of video game consoles, right? So if you look at something like the 8-bit systems that came out during the early 80s, they had their own curve, right? Okay, so we all remember when certain video game systems kind of came out. All right, 8-bit, that's kind of cool. 8-bit, it's here to stay. 8-bit's at its peak, and you know what? 8-bit's going away. But that's no problem, because at about this time, you get the 16-bit. And it goes through the same phases, then replaced by the 32-bit, 64, etc., etc. So individual products can become obsolete, but the industry itself engages in kind of this continuous phase of refreshing or renewal. Great. So in our next couple of videos, we're going to start talking about how you define an organizational field. We'll talk about the struggle between legitimacy and efficiency, and then we'll move on to our discussion of socialization. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any comments, post them down below in the questions. If you don't mind, give me a thumbs up, and definitely subscribe if you haven't. I appreciate my YouTube community. Thank you.